Hello and welcome to UzReport World News, and my name is Bahram Gaffarov. Fitch Ratings has published a presentation focusing on the challenges Uzbek banks facing in the current operating environment. According to the agency, state banks made up 85% of the sector assets at the end of 2020. Under the new banking sector development strategy, the government is targeting privatization of 7 banks by the end of 2025.
These banks should significantly transform their business models with assistance from international financial institutions that may become minority shareholders prior to sales of controlling stakes, aiming to improve profitability, corporate governance, and investor attractiveness. If the 7 banks are successfully privatized, the state bank's share of sector assets would decrease to 35%, said the agency. The sector average impaired loans ratio increased to 2.1% at end 2020 from 1.5% at end 2019. Banks continued their fast growth in 2020 despite the pandemic outbreak, and Fitch expects nominal lending growth of more than 30% in 2021. Foreign currency lending has been funded mostly with credit lines from foreign banks and IFIs, resulting in high external borrowings. Funding from the state made up an additional 30% of liabilities. Longer-term repayments will depend on asset quality performance, as most banks keep modest liquidity cushions, as reflected by a high 235% loans to deposits ratio at the end of 2020.
Germany is to spend €8 million towards a project to develop the Aral Sea region, Uzbek Agriculture Ministry said on February 27. Once the world's 4th largest lake in the area started disappearing in 1960, at a time when the Soviet Union turned the region into one of the biggest cotton supplies in the world. Between 1960 and 1987, its level dropped nearly 13 meters, and its area decreased by 40%. Recession has resulted from reduced inflow caused primarily by withdrawals of water for irrigation purposes.
Agriculture Minister Jamshid Hojayev and the project manager of the German Society for International Cooperation, Paul Schumacher, have inked an agreement on the implementation of the project Environmentally Oriented Regional Development in the Aral Sea region, aimed at supporting the governments of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan in achieving sustainable cross-border environmental and economic development of the region. Hojayev said the concept of the new project corresponds to the key priorities of the Strategy for the Development of Agriculture until 2030, including food security of the population and rural development, and also reflects the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The rural population engaged in the agricultural sector of Karakalpakstan and Khorazm region suffers greatly from the consequences of the Aral Sea disaster, Hojayev said. Therefore, environmentally oriented regional development in the Aral Sea region is very important for us. The main components of the new project are the provision of consulting services, digitalization, geoinformation system, remote sensing, cross-border cooperation, and others. We're also open to sharing information with our neighbors from Kazakhstan. I'm confident that this project and our own development plans will enable us all to achieve strong synergies and results. The 4-year project is to be implemented on the basis of an integrated approach to economic development, taking into account the minimization of the negative impact on environmental and social aspects.
Interest of Joe Biden's administration in Uzbekistan is expected to increase to a great extent due to the democratic transformations of the country and its growing status as an active player in Central Asia. This was stated by the former U.S. ambassador to Uzbekistan, George Kroll, during the online briefing held at the Institute of Central Asia and the Caucus on Central Asia's expectations from America's new president.
Depending on the adoption of the new 5-year U.S. strategy for Central Asia in February 2020, George Kroll argues that the Central Asian vector of U.S. foreign policy under the administration of Joe Biden will remain unchanged. According to former U.S. diplomat Robert Blake, United States could again prioritize educational and scientific exchange programs because of the large number of young people in Uzbekistan. He stated that the new administration would largely maintain continuity in U.S. policy towards Central Asia, based on the main priorities ensuring sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of the countries of the region, fighting terrorism, maintaining energy security, promoting economic prosperity in Central Asia. In general, according to the Uzbek diplomatic mission in Washington, the briefing participants were unanimous in the view that the U.S. should form a real strategy in Central Asia that promotes its real involvement and acting beyond promoting only individual development programs.
Eurocement, an international industrial holding company from Russia, has announced its intention to sell its stake in Uzbek Akhangaran Cement, according to data unveiled by Tashkent Stock Exchange. The company said it would sell over 4 million ordinary registered non-documentary shares through a single lot. The total amount of transaction under current terms would be equivalent to some $40.7 million. In October last year, Eurocement came under control of Sberbank due to its debt, and it has already been put up for sale. Akhangaran Cement, a leader in the cement market of Uzbekistan, is also one of the largest taxpayers in the country. The net profit of the plant in 2019 amounted to $17 million. During 9 months of 2020, this figure comprised $17.7 million. So far, the Uzbek champions won only individual awards at the Olympics. Now the country is aiming to develop team sport, and as an incipient step, the National Olympic Committee of Uzbekistan has signed a memorandum with sports officials of Turkey.
I think that after signing the Memorandum of Cooperation will raise our work to a new level. We'll study and implement the experience of the Turkish side. For example, boxing and taekwondo competitions were very useful and effective.
In order to conclude the memorandum, the pre-president of the Turkish National Olympic Committee, vice president of the International Archery Federation, Ugur Erdoner, arrived in Uzbekistan.
Of course, I want to thank the National Olympic Committee of Uzbekistan for this offer. I believe that the memorandum will benefit the athletes of the two countries. We're glad that two friendly and fraternal countries are united not only economically or commercially, but also in sports.
The sides are planning to cooperate in the development of winter sports, as well as volleyball, basketball, and handball.
Uzbekistan has approved water resource management and irrigation sector development strategy for 2021 and 2023. The program supported by the Asian Development Bank, the government of Switzerland and Australia. A new approach aims to facilitate modernization and improved operation of irrigation infrastructure.
In addition, it will encourage the application of water-saving and smart irrigation technologies, reduce the sale on lands, enhance cost recovery, as well as introduce public-private partnership and integrated water resources management. Exclusive attention will be paid to the regional cooperation, as the project will help promote mutually acceptable mechanisms for joint management of transboundary water resources and programs for the efficient use of water, ensuring a balance between the interests of the Central Asian countries.
An abandoned sculpture of Amir Temur was found in mountainous area of Kashkadarya region. A composition of 3 statues is located in the village of Chirakchi region. The scientists are now studying their findings, and they will soon announce their characteristics. Inflation rate in Uzbekistan reached 0.6% in February, according to a new report of the Republic's State Statistics Committee. January and February saw 1.7% increase in the price of goods and services, with a monthly average of 0.8%. In annual terms, the CPI growth has reached 11.4%.
Food products and non-food items in February 2021 rose on average by 0.6%, which is 0.7% and 1.4 points lower than in February 2020 and 2019. Services rose by 0.8%. This is 0.5 points higher than in February last year. In 2019, this month, the increase in the cost of services, as in the current year, was at 0.8%. The short-term consolidated consumer price index in February was 0.2 points lower than in February last year and 1 point lower than in February 2019. The consolidated CPI in annual terms to the corresponding months of the previous year was 2.1 points lower than in the same periods of 2020 and 2019. Traditionally, prices in Uzbekistan annually soar by 10%. For instance, 2017 saw a rise of 14.4%, 2018 14.3%, 2019 15.2%, and 2020 11.1%.
UK health officials say 6 cases of a coronavirus variant first detected in Brazil have been found in Britain. 3 people tested positive for the variant in Scotland and another 3 in England, including 1 person who authorities have been unable to trace. The P1 variant shares some mutations with a variant first identified in South Africa, and there are fears it could be more contagious and resistant to vaccines. First detected in the jungle city of Manus, it is said to have been responsible for a devastating second wave there, during which hospitals ran out of beds and oxygen. Susan Hopkins is from Public Health England.
This P1 variant is more transmissible than the original strains we saw from this virus. It is likely to have more antigenic change and therefore increase the risk of reinfections. And while we don't know the response to vaccine yet, we are concerned that we don't have spread of this that may impact on our vaccine programme.
One of the English cases is yet to be identified because the individual who took the test did not complete their registration card. Health officials are now scrambling to track that person down. They're appealing for everyone who took a test on February the 12th or 13th but did not receive their result to contact authorities. The other English and Scottish cases have all been linked to people who recently travelled abroad. Late last year, Britain detected a more transmissible variant of coronavirus that is believed to have originated near London. The so-called Kent variant led to a sharp rise in cases in the country and has spread worldwide.
Strong demand for tech goods is helping Asian factories to get busy. New figures out Monday showed manufacturing activity in Japan rose at its fastest pace in 2 years. In South Korea, exports rose for a fourth straight month in February. Memory chips and cars were among goods driving the 9.5% gain there. Factories also got busier in India, Indonesia, Vietnam and the Philippines. The numbers suggest makers are benefiting from robust global trade. Hopes have been lifted by worldwide rollouts of vaccine programs. But there could be a warning light flickering in China. The closely watched Caixin Market Purchasing Managers Index for manufacturers dropped to 50.9 in February. That is the lowest level since May, though still well above the 50-point mark that indicates expanding activity. Output there was hit by new domestic flare-ups of the health crisis and softer demand from some export markets. Some economists think the dip will be short-lived though. One at HSBC told Reuters that recovering domestic demand will likely help China's factories. Analysts say companies in countries emerging from lockdown will also lift demand as they start stocking up again.
Who knows? I may even decide to beat them for a third time, okay?
Former President Donald Trump hinted at a possible run for president again in 2024 on Sunday and repeated his fraudulent claims that he won the 2020 election.
This election was rigged.
In his first major appearance since leaving the White House in defeat.
It is far from being over.
Trump also attacked the winner of the 2020 election during his speech at the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, in Orlando, Florida, criticizing President Joe Biden's handling of border security in a throwback to how Trump kicked off his presidential campaign in 2016.
Joe Biden has triggered a massive flood of illegal immigration into our country, the likes of which we have never seen before. They're coming up by the tens of thousands. They're not giving us their best and their finest. Remember I said that. I said that a long time ago.
Trump declared that the GOP was united while also attacking his fellow Republicans, listing the names of those in the party who voted to convict him in his second Senate impeachment trial for inciting the deadly assault on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, when his supporters attempted to block Congress from certifying Biden's election victory.
Mitt Romney, Little Ben Sass, Richard Burr, Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Pat Toomey, and of course the warmonger, a person that loves seeing our troops fighting, Liz Cheney. How about that? Get rid of them all.
Trump said he had no plans to try to launch a third party, an idea he had discussed with advisors in the last couple of months.
I am not starting a new party.
His flirtation with another White House run could freeze the Republican field for 2024, as other potential candidates try to decide whether they dare to run against him. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador is expected to ask President Joe Biden to consider sharing part of the U.S. coronavirus vaccine supply with its poorer southern neighbor when the two leaders hold a virtual summit on Monday. That's according to U.S. and Mexican officials, including a source at the White House, who told Reuters that Biden is open to discussing the matter, but will keep as his number one priority the need to vaccinate as many Americans as possible first. López Obrador, commonly referred to as AMLO, has pressed the richest countries to improve poorer nations' access to vaccines and has called the current distribution system, quote, totally unfair. A Mexican official said AMLO would ask for a loan of the U.S. vaccine supplies to be paid back when vaccines that Mexico has contracts for are delivered later in the year. A U.S. official told Reuters the agenda for the virtual summit on Monday is also expected to include migration, the thorniest bilateral issue, together with law enforcement cooperation and economic development plans for southern Mexico and Central America. The official made clear that while Biden is focused on getting Americans vaccinated, the U.S. recognizes the need to forge a strategy to assist its neighbors. Mexico's inoculation program has been delayed by slow shipments, despite agreements with international drug makers to purchase doses for the country's 126 million people. So far, the Mexican government has given a first shot to just over 1.8 million people, or roughly 1.5% of the population.
A magnificent achievement for the country. That's how British Health Secretary Matt Hancock described the UK's vaccination effort on Twitter Sunday, after more than 20 million people across the UK received a COVID-19 vaccine. Britain has rolled out Europe's fastest COVID-19 vaccination program, raising the prospect of a lifting of its current lockdown restrictions between now and the end of June. The country also reported a further 6,035 cases within the previous 24 hours and 144 more deaths within 28 days of a positive test. The latest figures meant cases over the past 7 days were down 21.2% compared with the previous 7-day period, and deaths were down 33.5%. Officials advising the government said on Friday that certain occupations will not jump to the head of the queue in the second phase of Britain's COVID-19 vaccination rollout, with people instead prioritised by age.
So far, these have been the latest news for today. Goodbye. Take care.